let's try to look at this and see what the opportunities are. So, a few things. Here's a representation of his destroyer, all right? His destroyer is going in this direction. That's whatever. Destroyer's going in that direction. Yeah, going full speed. Actually, is turning as well. And the torpedoes are coming in from here. So the torpedoes are coming in on this line. We'll put that there. He is pinged, which for all intents and purposes, the ping gets repinged in the tail. He could have turned left. You're pretty sure most sub-torps don't home? What do you mean don't home? Didn't subs do this in real history? Basically made battleships obsolete? No, carriers made battleships obsolete. Because carriers could strike battleships while they weren't able to strike back, I think. Something like that. Okay, but here's the thing you have to know. And this was actually, this was referenced in... Let me do this real quick. Let me find this dev blog, because this was interesting. This is really worth knowing, because this can help you. Go to the dev thing. Submarines, next steps. Yes. And, sure. Okay, so I'm going to show this real quick, because this was something that I thought came out and was very interesting. If we look at this, there was something about homing. ASW. Torpedoes launch one by one. Okay, that's that stuff. Feedback. It was about this one. Torpedoes stop homing at a particular distance from the target. Now, when I think target, I think the ship that's being fired at. I don't believe that's actually correct, and I'll explain in a moment. At the same time, the point of their homing is counted considering the lead. Therefore, if you are headed toward torpedoes with your bow, the distance at which torpedoes stop homing increases, and the chances to evade increase as well. Why is this interesting? Because if we read that, and we see this, that means that the torpedoes right now are trying to generate an intercept vector for this. And actually, technically, he's turning, right? So he's turning in this direction, we'll say. So because he's turning in this direction, that intercept vector, where those things are primed forward, is, say, here. So the torpedoes are slowly moving toward the intercept vector. And as it keeps moving ahead, they keep cutting in on that intercept vector, right? And eventually they end up catching the destroyer, which ends up being, what, down here or something. Bop gets nailed in the tail, which that looks horrendous. Let's make that look prettier, whatever. There's the DD. Now what could we do with this idea of the intercept vector? Torpedoes stop homing at a set distance from the intercept, not from the ship. That is what the dev blog tells us. Why? Because if the torpedoes were coming in here, and the interception point was there, they would lose homing at a further distance when you're moving forward. Because it's going to, basically the torps are going to go, they have a terminal attack run. So if they're going to go terminal, if they're going to cut their homing on their final attack, then that's where they go straight. So what you can do in this instance, if you got torps coming in, you turn off to the left, you put the intercept vector here, the torps end up going toward that, and you just turn up. So you basically, you serpentine turn out of the torps, you pull them off to the side, and then you cut back in, they go dead. And they can't turn to connect with the intercept vector anymore. They've already gone terminal. They pull by. So to kind of reset this up, here we have the Ragnarok, or the Ragnar, whatever, and he's running from torpedoes and they're homing. So the torpedoes are coming in from behind and they're looking to tail chase. Because he's got a ping here, there's two reasons why that's important. One is that the intercept vector is slightly ahead of the DD, which means it's actually very accurate. If the ping, for instance, was up here, we'll use different colors. If the ping was up here, the intercept vector would be all the way out even further, which might involve some kind of jukes and shit, maybe. The only thing I can see as a possibility, and frankly, who would want to slow down while you're being chased by torpedoes, but if he killed his forward speed, if he killed that down, stopped, where is the intercept vector? There. Theoretically, if he's able to stop, where is the intercept vector? There. Where is the terminal attack run? There. So he could try to, if he could stop or reverse and kick the intercept point further back, then he baits the torpedoes off and he pulls forward and jukes it, just like we were juking shells in the Khabarovsk earlier today. That's a really messy diagram, but basically I'm thinking that the dead zone on Torps because it's different for every ship. For battleships, it's pretty massive. It's almost like 2 kilometers. For cruisers, it's like 1. For DDs, it's like half a kilometer. It's very close. So if he had stopped, he might have been able to get them to dead zone and then pull forward and get them to juke by cutting forward and having them drift by. That's the thought. So if we look at that, what that looks like in practice.
Out-traded the shit out of somebody.
Just gonna
snapped his neck in half.
I'm just gonna slow this down.
And traded the shit out.
Whatever. So Torps are coming in. You can see he was actually going on this direction. Where were the Torps going? You can see that when he was heading this direction, the Torps were lining out to plot an intercept vector over in this area. As he starts to turn, the intercept vector goes from here, pulling down, pulling around over to this side. The Torps are going to start to maneuver. So right now, this generating an intercept is going to be in this area. They're starting to hook in. They should keep hooking. Now they're only going to have so much turning, although there we go. They cut in a little further. The harder he turns, the farther the intercept is off, which means the more they're going to be turning to meet it. He flattens out. They are still trying to get to the intercept, so they're still looking to be on this line. And then at that point, he has damage conned the ping. They no longer have an intercept. They're going straight, which is here. They were still turning right until he damage conned. Now they're gonna dead out. So how would he juke that? Intercept is down here, down on the bottom screen. It's forward away. They're turning. I think at this point, because he knows he's about to stop being detected, he slams on the brakes. They get closer. Intercept is going to start bleeding down to about here. He dead zones it out, and then he can pull forward and have them juke. I believe that's really the answer, because if he stops here, there's going to be shells coming in. He'll take some shell damage, but I mean, it's shell damage from whatever the fuck that is, Haragumo, I guess, versus 4 torpedoes, which obviously ends up being an ouch. Yeah, I think they're still curling in because they're still generating a new vector. If he's able to slow down here, but God, they're fast. Oh, maybe it was the green ping. Maybe, does that increase tracking ability? I've heard it does, but I don't know. Probably a question worth asking. If he hadn't straightened out, maybe he could have gotten them, if he kept turning, he might have been able to out-turn and have them juke behind. But yeah, that's some ouch. That's a thunk. Homing torpedoes are OP, what a shocker. I mean, I don't know. This is OP to you? Why is this OP? Also, another thing he could have done was to keep going serpentine here. He's juking shells, I understand, but he could have kept doing that while this Torps were on him to try to pull out the engagement range. And again, we saw that serpentine, if you're charging something, serpentine has the ability to juke the Torps off to the side. If you're able to be away from this in serpentine, you could try to pull them out as well. It does feel like the green ping kicked up the homing quite a bit. Or maybe it's because he flattened out? What is this? It seems as if DCP doesn't instantly force a terminal. It seems to have a delay. Yeah, probably a server delay. What is all this stuff? Who knew homing torps are completely OP? He totally deserved to lose all his health. Yeah, why are they OP? What about his OP? Didn't subs do this in history? No, I don't know about the guide to torpedoes back in World War II. Fuck, I don't know history. I don't know historical torpedo homing stuff. Most torpedoes during World War II did not have homing technology. Pretty sure USN radar didn't pass through terrain, or that USN subs didn't have special dive plane boosts, and the Desmo didn't have insane install acceleration. Sure. It's an arcade game, so it is. Realistically, technically, homing torpedoes were invented in 1943. It is still World War II, but yeah, invented versus implemented. Got it. Seems as if DCP doesn't instantly force the terminal. Well, I responded to that earlier. I think that might be server delay, because it was actually very brief between when he damage conned and when it stopped looking like it homed, because he damage cons here. Looked pretty terminal. I don't think they updated from there. Maybe briefly. Maybe. So Wargaming could theoretically create a noisemaker? That'd be cool. What, didn't they have that in the Hunt for the Red October? Wouldn't that be a thing you could reference, I guess? Some ending to... So this is balanced how? The more you turn, the worse it becomes. That means it's going to become a tiny gap. As far as the gap goes, the gap's probably going to be removed because the torps are going to be single fire now, which means the torps theoretically will home better. So that actually is a bit of a buff to the torps that they'll have to see what that does. Because no chance to dodge. You guess BFK losing almost all his HP was attacks? He lost half of it. Healing goes from there down to there. It's roughly half a ship. But having DCP up isn't a realistic counter to a class, especially with how much you need to use damage con. Sure, I get that. Absolutely. But if you feel that saving your damage con is more important for juking torps, then save your damage con for juking torps. If you feel that your damage con is going to get you out of a bad situation, get out of a bad situation. But we literally had a conversation about why the torps were hooking in and what the mechanics are to avoid it. How many people are actually going to be able to do this? How many people are actually going to play this way? A very small percentage. But BFK is very good. So once this becomes common knowledge, once the way this works becomes just people know, well then BFK will juke torps all day. So this is not that concerning. It looks bad because it looks bad. But if at this point we've got 5 seconds remaining on detection, we've got torps off in the distance, and if you wanted to, you could slam on the brakes, let the torps come in, and then push forward and bail. You could do that because the torps are going to terminal as long as you're not running away from them, which is kind of funny if you think about it. But if you stop or something to bring that terminal closer, then you can bail. Because once they go terminal, I don't know if they reacquire. And they go so fast that reacquiring, they probably wouldn't be able to hook in on you anyway. That would be worth testing in a training room, but unfortunately we can't use subs in training rooms right now. Yes, there will be subs and randoms in the next patch. Pressing G to kill the enemy ship is so much fun. Well, getting into a position where you can press G is the problem, because if that's what you do, then very likely you're dead if all you do is just sail at the nearest sub and then get murdered by all of his team. Subs shouldn't have homing torps. It's a game. I mean, fundamentally, it's what it is. It's a game. If you want to play a torpedo DD, you can play a torpedo DD with dumbfire torps. If you want to play a torp-based thing, then they have a homing aspect. Although, I have heard that some people would like a dumbfire option, as opposed to just firing the homing torps dumbfire. Because homing torps that are going dumbfire actually go 30% slower than rated speed until they get a ping. So if they're rated at 100 knots, which none are, so please don't think they're 100 knot torps, but if it was rated as 100 knots for easy math, it would troll at 70 knots until it had a ping to acquire to accelerate and go after. No ship should have homing armament. Yeah, but why? What is the problem with the homing armament? Why is the homing thing a problem? Why is this an issue? What about a homing thing is the problem, and why is it the problem? That's what I'm asking. Burn to death or be dev-struck? Dev-struck? Let's see. It's also an argument that nothing else requires researching game mechanics in order to kind of maybe dodge it. Everything else in this game is just turn. I don't know if I would agree with that, Purple. Because, honestly, how do you counter a CV if you don't research it? How do you understand the rocket pattern? Granted, there's machine gun fire now to tell you where the rockets are going to go. But if you don't know... don't be like that, Ensign. We're having a conversation here. So, if you don't know what the reticles are in a CV and they just always hit you, then you just assume that the CVs are homing and they hit you regardless and there's nothing you can do. But then you play a carrier, you recognize what the reticle is, you recognize what the enemy CV has to do to get the reticle on top of you, and you start playing to where they can't get the reticle on top of you. Depending on what ship you're in, depending on what the situation is. But you don't have to make it easy for them because you know what they're trying to do, so you don't give them the best shot. That's what it is, right? That's how you interact with the CV. You learn what the CV can do, and then you try to deny them their best option. You're still going to get hurt. You still get hurt regardless. You can bow into a ship, you'll still get hurt by HE. It's just, that's the truth of it. You get hurt in this game. You can counter a CV by exiting to port. You can counter every single ship in the game by exiting to port. You can counter battleships and cruisers and DDs and CVs and subs, and you can counter yourself if you want. You can always, every single time, you can just leave the game and not play it, and congratulations, a loser is you. Right. I mean, isn't it obvious? See, again, okay. Let me put this. I'm gonna give you I'm gonna try to give you a fundamental problem. All right. You have I'm trying to give like a decent example without just going straight to like a game dev thing, but I guess. So as a game developer, you design a thing, and the thing works. It does exactly what you want it to do. This thing deals damage to that thing. This thing has ways to block the damage, whatever. So mathematically, it works. In the flow of the game, it works. All the stuff, it works. However, the players playing it may feel, this just doesn't feel right. But the math works, the gameplay works, all the stuff seems to play out correctly. What's wrong with it? Why doesn't it work? That's where you start getting into feel things. That's where you start to get into, the situation and how is the player responding to the situation? What do they want? What are they getting this bad feeling from? And that's when you start having to ask questions, because as a designer, you can design a house and it's a beautiful house, but if nobody likes the house, then nobody buys the house. So that's going to be a problem. But it's structurally sound and it's made of good materials and it's affordably priced. Great. Congratulations. If nobody's interested in the house, nobody buys the house. So what do you do to get it to a point where somebody wants to interact with it, somebody wants to pick it up? So that's where this question comes in. What don't you like about homing? Is it because, there's zero skill? See, I disagree with this. I disagree there's zero skill because I've played a sub trying to get homing stuff to hit things. And outside of somebody else burning its damage con for me, they're able to either A, use a damage con to mitigate the torpedo threat, or B, they're able to outmaneuver the Torps because Torps can be outmaneuvered even when homing. You can guide them into islands, you can guide them into misses, it depends on what class you're doing. So for me, I don't see homing as like, if there are Torps coming in, I'm dead. I see there are Torps coming in, how do I mitigate it? I can't mitigate it. I'll throw the DCP or something and try to forcibly mitigate it. Or if it's going to be Citadel hit because they've got really good position on me, then I can just reduce the Citadel damage at least. Make it less. But mostly I think that would be battleships. You can't wait for exocet missiles? I don't know what those are. Sorry. It takes about 10 seconds to learn exactly how to dodge a CV. Ooh, I disagree with that. I want you to go find your niece or your nephew. I want you to go find some 15-year-old person that you happen to know in your life. I want you to put them on a carrier for approximately 10 seconds and then put them in a surface ship and tell them to dodge your attacks. And I want you to see how well that works. Now, realistically, I realize 10 seconds is a joke. So give them 3 hours. Give them 5 hours. Then put them in a surface ship and see how well they dodge your attacks. It's hard. It is not easy. And it takes time. It takes time, practice, and repeated execution. The issue to me is that in randoms, you're almost constantly out of DCP as a battleship with an 80-second cooldown. Introducing a perma-ping thing with subs that's already able to launch Torps every 25 to 30 seconds, and even more with the one, isn't exactly a fun thing in a big ship. Deadweight Fractal is my sponsor. Well, it's a sponsor me. Woo! So they make good computers. Check it out. It's crazy to me that anyone can sit there and say homing Torps aren't broken. Cool. All right, so let's look at this real quick. Damn it, we can't go into a training room, which is unfortunate. Hey, Roz, I'm gonna leave the div. Let's look at this real quick. Let's look at subs. Let's look at a tier 10 submarine. We will look at the Balau for the fun of it. Torps, you could throw 6 torpedoes. Well, you could alpha at 40 seconds, but you reload them one at a time. 6 torpedoes, cool. 14,000 times 4, 28, yay math, 42,000. And then of course you have to reload and stuff. 42,000 damage you can throw at least at once, and then it would take you 2 minutes? 2 minutes to reload all of them. Where was this? Because we were fighting this earlier. I know he's not moving and all that other shit. That's okay. Doot. That. Because we were literally just doing it. Play the Kaaba. Carriers are also broken. Have you played carriers recently, Nabbot? Carriers are, probably in the worst place that they've been for a while. They've been nerfed consistently. They've been nerfed for a long time. But in all seriousness, definitely give them a shot. It's brain dead easy to get 200,000 in hack. Cool. But when you get 200,000, do you win the game? Because that's just damage. Alright, so we're going to go over here. We're going to look at a battleship. Now, we saw in random battles, I think, that we just did, I got about 50 to 60,000 damage in a minute or two, give or take. I know he's not duking, but if we put somebody that's very good in this game into a destroyer, and he's firing at a battleship, he's not going to miss very much because he's very good at this game. And it took us probably about 15 seconds to start this out, so let's actually get a few shatters in here, just for lulz. Aim for like a half shatter rate, maybe. So we're up to 15 and approximately 20 seconds, 15K. We're up to 18. We still haven't lit a fire yet, by the way. There's a fire. Alright, so it's been right at about a minute. And in a destroyer, we've kicked out about 35,000 damage. Why is this important? Because in a sub, over the course of a minute, you could possibly throw about 30 to 40,000 damage if your torpedoes land. If you're in a gunboat, you see an enemy, you shoot your shells, odds are if you're a good player, you're going to be landing about 30 to 45% of those shells. Yes, the target wasn't moving, I get that. However, that's not the point. The point is, people farm battleships in this game all day. You can watch BFK do it, you can watch anybody do it. They farm battleships, it's what they do. You shoot guns that are extremely accurate for people that know how to shoot them. They hit the target, they deal damage. Is it a homing gun? No. But you just aim it, you shoot it, you hit the target, it takes damage. It's very accurate. That's how a destroyer does damage. That's how a cruiser does damage. Is it really that big of a deal that the sub has the ability to hook Torps in to be able to get some damage too? If the sub is going to deal 30,000 damage hitting 3 or 4 or whatever Torps, cool. You could just shoot them with guns and do the same amount of damage in roughly the same amount of time. And if I do it in a Kaba, they can shoot back at me and I can juke all their shit. So that's cool. Don't be a dick, Active. Purple can be a little hard to deal with at the time, or sometimes he can be come off pretty strong, but let's not start trading blows in chat. That's not fun. All right. All right, where were we? Sure. They literally took the strongest Torps in the game and gave them homing? Strongest Torps? I mean, they're basically Holland Torps. Is that what you're saying is like the strongest Torps? Let's see. Carriers are also broken. I disagree, but that's a known thing. I played a sub before. I've missed many, many Torps. I wonder if people make these comments ever played the class. Navbot is quite a skilled player. Navbot does know the game. Let's see. I love everyone saying submarines are OP. Played against a Congress or Minotaur, those are OP. Along with any other ships, if you don't want to die in a strategic game, don't put yourself in open water situation to farm damage. I don't know if Congress or Minotaur are crazy OP. They can be very strong. What about Smallland, overpen mechanics, DDs in general? Sure. Winning and losing doesn't matter. It's about player interaction. Do you think it's fun to be unable to dodge Torps or have very little counterplay? The Hakuryu is very powerful. Absolutely. The Hakuryu can come after you even if you've got significant amounts of AA. However, I'm pretty sure you were in the last clan battle season. Do you play clan battle, Snapbot? I would assume you do. The Hakuryu was in clan battles for the first 2 or 3 weeks or something before it got blocked out, right? And I got to watch as high-end CV players would take their torpedoes, take all 12 of them, and go in to try to strike a cruiser and get 2 drops off and lose 12 planes. Because that was the reality of the AA of the situation in a coordinated setting. You get a bunch of people that are playing, and they murder planes. But he dodged flak. Yeah, but the continuous was so high, it ripped through the planes. They died. So you can do that approximately twice, and you've run out of planes. Now, if you go into a random battle, and you're going to go off and farm a Conqueror that's completely isolated because, hey, dude, I'm a Conqueror, bro. I'm going to do me shit. Cool. The Conqueror's going to get wrecked. Conqueror's AA is not amazing. Conqueror's alone. You're going to dunk on the Conqueror. Cool. You know, congratulations. That's a high damage number. But somebody deciding to sail broadside to a battleship and say, shoot me, is donating damage to a battleship. In the same way that completely isolating yourself is saying shoot me to a carrier. If the carrier chooses not to do it, well, they choose not to do it. Same way as a battleship might choose not to blap whoever sits broadside to them. But I don't know. Being unable to dodge Torps, taking Torps, sure. You're gonna take Torps against an experienced carrier pilot. He's gonna drop Torps. You're gonna get hit 1, 2, 3, possibly 4, whatever. You're gonna take Torps. The question is, what are you getting for it? How many planes are you killing for it? And you might think, well, if I kill planes, who cares? He's got more. Yeah, until he runs out. So when you put yourself in a position where you can mitigate the incoming torps and you can bleed the carrier planes while he's trying to torp you, it does add up. It depends on how you play the situation. Isn't the TTK? What's the TTK? Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, your planes just die. This is true. It's not hard to dodge flak. I know there's simple YouTube tutorials. That is correct. There are ways to dodge flak to a point. Because flak will de-aim after it saturates in the center. So once you have a certain amount of flak, which is above 10 puffs, I think it is. At 10 flak puffs provided by 2 ships, the flak in front of the planes is now saturated at 8 puffs, and all remaining flak will go out to the sides, which means if you choose to juke or turn, you can start striking into a flak wall that forces you to continue the turn. In which case you can be caught in flak even if you don't want to. There are very skilled players that can still make that work, but it doesn't mean that it isn't a thing, and it is actually worth planning for if you're trying to plan AA defense in like a clan battle or a situation where you're, do I stay with 1 ship or do I stay with 2? That's a very good carrier player. Maybe I want to stay with 2. Or at least have the ability to fall back to have additional AA assistance. You get 200,000 on a Hakuryu, you need like 100 hours of practice. You just need a few battleships to donate a bunch of health to you. It really comes down to what the situation is. Let's see. Yeah, I play CVs. Haku's not very easy. People that play Hakuryu obsessively have hundreds and hundreds of games on it, so you know they are going to make it look very easy. But yes, it is. It's not a ballerina of a carrier. Okay, I think we talked about that. I won't be able to play anymore, but thanks for the games. Yes, sorry, Roz. Thank you very much for the game, sir. Roz does work at night, so unfortunately there's a cutoff, and I got pulled into conversating. Ping and floods from subs are cumulative with fires. I will tell you, flood chance on submarine torpedoes suck. I don't know how bad they are, but they are not good. It has been very, very rare that I've gotten floods on sub-torps. Why that is, I'm sure it's intentional, but it still blows. I believe they have more flood chance than CV torps, which are like at the 40, 50, 60%. And if you think, wow, that's a lot, a destroyer torpedo has like 270 to 330% flood chance. So it's a pretty significant difference. Like subtorps maybe at like 120, 140. It's not great. How's my night going? It's interesting. Got pulled into a conversation. Skyraider wanted me to check out a video of torpedoes slinging in onto a DD, which talked about torpedo homing mechanics, which then turned into talking about homing in general. Yes, it was banned due to popularity. Yes, it was, which was unfortunate. This is why you pre-drop to reduce your losses. If you take a full strike package, take it to the ship, you take it to the CV to kill the CV. Why would you take all 12 on a ship if you didn't have the heal? Well, realistically, Navbot, the 12 was to strike in initially with the heal, so that the heal is at its strongest potency, because you're healing roughly 8 planes worth of damage, and if you're going into a coordinated clan battle setting of 2 or 3 cruisers on top of each other, you're going to get hurt. The problem is, often they would come in for a second drop, and the second drop would annihilate everything. Yeah, it didn't work out so well, but that's, yes, probably a misplay. As far as trying to kill the CV, you can't get that if the CV player is paying attention. He just fighters his own ship. So you could pre-drop to single torp the CV and then come all the way back and torp them again slowly and chip them down that way, but it does take a lot of time. Any Hakuryu player that's able to go over there, heal through the little defensive fighter and just murder a CV, that's an inexperienced enemy that they're fighting. Literally all they have to do is just recall and put a fighter on their CV, and they don't get to do that. Which is kind of silly, but that's all it takes. Popularity is literally why they ban ships in clan battles. They ban on that basis, hence why the Hawk, Grafspay, among others, were banned. Not just popularity, also performance. They do look at performance metrics, and the performance metrics, you know, can basically, wow, like the Petro, for instance. The Petro was banned from a something. I don't remember. Was this COTS? The Petro was banned from something. I don't remember why it was banned. I just remember that it was. And the reason was because, like, even a cursory look at stats just showed that the Petro was performing in many fronts, as opposed to other ships, which they perform well here but don't perform well there, whatever. So the Petro was just, it was outstatting other things. And that was just like, why wouldn't you pick this if it's just going to if it's going to mathematically beat everything else? So they just took it off the table so you could make choices again. It's not just popularity. Granted, popularity is going to be because wow, this ship is outstatting everything else. So yes, there's a relationship there, but it's not just they played this a lot, let's just ban it. It is more than that. TTK time to kill. Thank you. Any of you been hit by a full CV strike package from back before the CV rework? Now that was a thing of beauty. If done correctly, you were dead in the first 2 minutes. Yeah, that was RTS. Yes, it was banned in COTS. Yeah, I remember that. I thought the Petra was banned from something else, though. And that was a different conversation, but whatever. I don't remember. Petra gets banned from everything due to its overperformance. They did say they were going to nerf the Petro. They just haven't said how they're going to nerf it. So that'll be interesting whenever that comes around. Performance and popularity are generally the same. Things are popular because they're good. Well, I'll give you a case where that's not the case. That was not the issue. Smolensk. Smolensk performs beautifully in the hands of talented players. It does not in the hands of most players. So performance was beautiful, and everybody said the Smolensk is amazing. Oh, you got to get it. It's broken. It's broken. Get the Smolensk. So people got the Smolensk. And then there were lots of Smolensk players, and there was lots of Smolensk. But it did not perform. The stats tanked. People did not play the ship very well. But they pulled it because of popularity, not performance, because people got sick of seeing 1, 2, or even 3 Smolensks in every flipping battle. And it's like, you have to have some variety, some sense of, some difference there for people to kind of keep engaged, because if they just see the same thing and it is annoying in the same way, doing the same shit over and over again, people get really over that. So the popularity thing was the reason why the Smol was pulled, not because of its performance, which is interesting to know, I think. Correlated but not fully, yes. When they talked about FDR, Petro, nerf, and a Zao buff. Yes, I think that was in the big statement thing they did. Really interested in how they're going to buff the Zao. Me personally, I played the IJN line. I really enjoyed the tier 5, 6, and 7. And then I got to the tier 8. And all of these, the Furutaka, the Oba, the Miyoko, if you look at these, they have a nice deck. They got a nice thick deck. 32, I mean, it could be better, but this is battleship plating, basically, at tier 8 and up. And then you get to the tier 7, and the tier 7 is just covered in 27, and that's it. So you don't have any ability to juke shells really anymore, like at all. It sucks. You just get penned everywhere, and it's all sorts of dumpster dam damage. And I don't think that gets better with the Ibuki either, and I think the Zao gets the standard 30, but everything else has that. Okay, the Ibuki gets a little, but you could still get penned off the deck. It could ricochet and scrape right into here and you'll still take damage, which is unfortunate. So, if they were able to give, like, the Zao an armored deck, maybe, wouldn't that be nice? Because at least to be fitting with the line, like, kick this up to, like, a 38 or a 42 or something. Then suddenly you're bouncing even the overmatch stuff, and I guess maybe they'll overpen on your superstructure, but if you're able to kind of like bow in, unless you take it in the nose, you could bounce off some shells and, I don't know, make it something. If they did that, at least they would still be in the same vein as the other ships in the line, which would be nice. Yeah, Wargaming just informed that they were going to be altering them. They didn't say what they're going to do. Zao buff would either be health, AA, or both. I don't think the Zao needs AA. I think the Zao's AA is okay. Because I've dealt with a defensive fire Zao and it was not very fun. And it even gets a fighter as well. Has 6 flak puffs, not a joke. For a single ship, not a joke. It doesn't have amazing damage, but combined with defensive fire and priority sector, I mean, it's not something you ignore. It's something you try to get through, get your thing done, and you get out. You also want to run a spotter on a Zao? I think you want to run spotter on a Zao if you're trying to farm. Which I don't know if that's what the concept for the IJN cruisers is. I think the concept for the IJN cruisers is that you're supposed to be very stealthy and you can ambush somebody. You can ambush somebody with long-range torps. You can ambush somebody with 203s from an angle they didn't expect with extremely accurate high-pen shells that are going to hurt. So you can't ambush somebody if you're sitting in the open water just power farming people, which fundamentally is a different version of ship. That just turns you into a different Hindenburg, basically. Or a different German ship that's just going to run around kiting and lighting you on fire all the time. So why have 2 different ships if they're both the same thing? But that's a balance thing. Whereas, you know, if you thicken up the deck, then you still have that surprise motherfucker moment, and then you could theoretically turn and bow in, shrug off some shells while you go dark again and reposition, maybe? So that comes down to design intent and stuff. Well, you're talking about buffs, gearing needs to be lower in the water. I think they already did that. That's the Yu Yang. Pretty sure. Okay, well, it seems that the discussion has kind of petered out. So it was fun. I had fun. I hope y'all had fun. I don't know. But yeah, this looked pretty scary as hell. But I think if instead of making the hard turn, he was able maybe to pull this way to get the torps to kind of whatever and then angle back in. Or maybe slow down, go this way, have the torps angle off, deaden out, go terminal, and then cut off to the other direction. He probably could have the torps go off while he cut left. Especially because he was going to go undetected pretty soon. He might have eaten a few Haragumo shells if he just kind of kept shooting, which is really what this turn is. He's juking Haragumo shells. But, you know, if he took 1 or 2, that'd be a hell of a lot less than the 4 torpedoes. And that's just really going to come down to everybody in the higher end community learning how torpedo homing mechanics work so you can fool them. Because they will. That's what super unicums do. That's what competitive people do, is they're going to milk it for everything that's worth, learn every piece of the mechanic they can so that they can exploit it as any advantage possible. Because if you could theoretically save damage cons, not ever use any damage cons, and avoid all the torps, then it doesn't matter. They could ping you all you want. It's not going to do anything because you just juke.